Hi, welcome to AmateurLogic.TV, episode 28. I'm George.
I'm Tommy.
And I'm Peter.
We've got a great show for you today. I say that every time.
But it's always true.
It is. And we've got 4 segments this time around. We've got a guest segment in here from our friend Charlie, KY5U, that we'll be looking at. And I think we've got a great show. It's an interesting subject for sure this time around, and you don't want to miss any of it. So let's get started. I've got an email from Joel K0ATM, and Joel said, "Hey George, my J-pole seems to be directional and I can't figure out why. Bought it at a ham fest here in Missouri about 3 months ago. Could you help me find the problem?" And Joel, you know, J-poles are omnidirectional antennas normally. If you've got it mounted on a pole, you should be okay. If you're on the side of a tower or something, you might be getting some shadowing from it. But J-poles are pretty bad about feed line re-radiation, since they are a balanced antenna and your coax is unbalanced. It's possible that you've got radiation from the antenna coming back down the feed line, and that could change the pattern of your antenna. And what I would suggest is you look at this link at hamtech.net, and there's some information on there on how to build a one-to-one balun that can help you isolate that feed line. It's basically just wrapping it around a piece of PVC pipe, and that works. I've used it here on HF for some of my antennas. I believe you've used something similar.
I have something similar. I actually need to make myself a good one.
Yeah. Tommy, you got an email there?
Man, I do have some emails here. I've got one from our friend Elliot, K1MF. Says he just finished watching episode 27, wants to thank us for all of our effort we put into the programs. And you're welcome. It's a lot of fun. We have a silent following here in southeastern and south central Connecticut. Few of us are members of SPARC, Shores Points Amateur Radio Club. And they've got a website listed here, spark.us. So they're all fans of ours, and they have all 27 episodes. Personally, I prefer to watch your episodes over anything on broadcast and most movies. So keep up the good work, and we're looking forward to episode 28 in the near future. It's good to see all you guys back together once again. We're not quite all back together again this show, but Jim will probably be back next one or two.
Yeah, Jim's got a new camera he needs to use, so he'll be back.
Yeah.
Peter?
Yes, thanks, George. I've got an email here from Greg OH2FFY, Foxtrot Yankee. Not sure where that's from. It's obviously a European call, but I think it might be Finland, but apologies if I've got the country wrong. Anyway, Greg says, he mentions, amongst other things in a lengthy email, I founded the CB to Ham group on Yahoo Groups, which deals with converting surplus CB gear over to the ham bands. And he goes on to explain some of the things that he's actually doing. And that's a great thing to be doing, Greg. A lot of that old 27 meg gear is easily converted over to 10 meters. And, you can, with the solar cycle improving, there'll be some good skip opportunities in the near future. Mind you, though, in ham language, CB is a bit of a word we don't mention. Isn't that right, George? Tommy?
That seems to be universal, doesn't it?
Yeah, Big 10-4, good buddy.
Well, Peter, you had an interesting segment around this time. Tell us what it's about.
Well, many years ago, before I became a ham radio operator, George, Tommy, I used to listen to shortwave radio, and I used to live in central Victoria, which is countryside, and the reception out there was superb, hardly any interference, whereas here where I live now in the city, it's just, wall-to-wall noise and interference. So what I used to do was right away to shortwave radio stations overseas and get some really colourful cards which I collected. So this segment, we're going to have a look at those cards and also how you go about collecting them. Hi everyone. This month we're going to have a look at QSLing shortwave radio stations. long before I became an amateur radio operator, I used to listen to shortwave radio quite a bit. Now, you're probably asking what a QSL card is, and this is what we're on about here. Should I get this the right way up? This is a QSL card from NHK, which is a Japanese radio station. You can hear this radio station on the international shortwave bands, and to get a card like this, what you need to do is you need to listen to the radio station, write down the details of what you heard, how well you heard it, and on what frequency you heard it, and then send that away with return postage to the address of the radio station. Now, if they confirm that indeed it was their radio station that you were listening to, they'll send you back a nice card like this, and sometimes perhaps even a pennant or some stickers as well. As I said, this came from NHK in Japan. This is the Shimanto River in Spring in Kochi Prefecture. It's really great collecting these cards. I've got a small collection myself, and we'll have a little look at that later. But today we're going to just look at what you need to get started in QSLing and how you go about it. So let's get started. The first bit of equipment you're going to need is a shortwave radio. The shortwave bands run from 2 to 26 megahertz, and you need a shortwave receiver that can receive some or all of those frequencies. The most important thing to look for is that the radio has a digital frequency readout. That way you'll know exactly and accurately what frequency you're on. Now, you can use a telescopic antenna, which comes with a portable radio like this, or you can attach an external antenna here on the side. Alternatively, you can get a communications receiver like this. This is the Realistic DX394 and does pretty much the same job as the Deakin DE1103 over there. You can attach an external antenna on the back here. I normally use a loop antenna. A loop antenna is very good because it will tend to favour stations that are being received along the plane of the loop, whilst rejecting any interference or anything else that's coming off to the side of the loop. So if you've got interference from another station or some noise, you just turn the loop side on. The circuitry in here takes the very weak signal received by the loop and multiplies it and makes it bigger. Another alternative is to make what's commonly called a wire antenna. What you do is you just hang a very long piece of wire up in the air, and you connect one end to the radio here. The other end you'll need to attach to something that's non-conductive. Now, when you hang your long wire up in the air, make sure it's as long as possible, as high as possible, and most importantly, make sure there's no danger of it actually falling and landing on any power lines at all. Keep them well clear of power lines. Otherwise, bad things can happen. Let's now look at a letter that I received just recently from Radio New Zealand International. They've sent me a whole heap of stuff in response to my reception report. So let's have a look at what I got. This is the QSL card, Voice of the Pacific, www.rnzi.com, Radio New Zealand International. And on the back here, the frequency and the time that I quoted to them. So they've confirmed my reception report to them, which was nice. Here we've got their current frequency schedule and a leaflet about Radio New Zealand, a short note, which is nice, and some stickers. So as you can see, you get some quite interesting material back from these radio stations. I recommend that you get a copy of the World Radio and TV Handbook, which includes details of international and domestic radio stations. For example, here's the entry for Radio Netherlands worldwide. It includes their address and a full frequency schedule. I can see here that they have an English language broadcast each day at 10 hours UTC to Southeast Asia and Australia on 12065 kilohertz. You'll note that the times used here are all a 24-hour clock, and it's all given in UTC, Universal Coordinated Time, which is the time in Greenwich in England. Your local time will be earlier or later than that, and you're going to need to add or subtract the difference in hours. For example, here in Australia, I'm 10 hours ahead of UTC, so when looking through this frequency schedule, I take this time and I add 10 hours to get my local time. So that 10 hours broadcast would be 6 o'clock daily in the evening for me. When you write away to a radio station, there's 5 things you really need to tell them. Firstly, you need to tell them the frequency of the radio station that you heard. Secondly, you need to tell them what you heard and provide a detailed chronology of at least 15 minutes. You write down the stories, the songs, and any other details that you've heard so that the station can confirm and know that indeed it was their station that you heard. You need to write down the time and date that you heard these details, and also you need to provide your return address with return postage. Finally, and most importantly, you need to tell them how good their signal was received at your location. To do that, you use the SINPO code, SINPO, Signal Interference, Noise, Propagation and Overall. For each of these items, you give it a rating from 1 to 5, and where 1 is a poor signal and 5 is a good, strong signal. So, for example, for signal, you might give it 4, which should be a relatively good signal. If you had a bit of interference, you might rate it low. You might rate it as a 2. If there wasn't much noise, you would rate it as a 4. And if propagation was really good, if you're getting a really, really strong signal, then you'd put that in as a 5. And your overall mark, sort of averaging out those figures that you put up above here, probably would be about a 4. In other words, not a perfect signal, but a relatively good one. Now, a quick and simple way to send return postage is to send an international reply coupon, which is one of these things. You can get them from your local post office, and they cost just a couple of dollars. Let's now have a quick look at my QSL collection. First up, Radio Singapore International, Radio Beijing in China, Radio France International, Radio Havana in Cuba, Radio Korea, Radio Prague in Czechoslovakia, All India Radio, Radio Netherlands, Col Israel, HCJB in Ecuador, Radio Swiss International, the Christian Science Monitor, Radio Tashkent in Uzbekistan, Radio Berlin International in the former Eastern, or rather East Germany, New Caledonia, Radio Tirana in Albania, Radio Australia, Radio New Zealand International, this colourful card's from Radio Denmark, HCJB in Ecuador, KTWR in Guam, National Broadcasting Commission of Papua New Guinea, Voice of the Mediterranean in Malta, Radio Japan, another card from the Christian Science Monitor, Radio Vaticana, Radio Reloj in Costa Rica, Deutsche Welle in the former West Germany, Pennants from Dubai in New Zealand, Disabled Radio, Radio Tanzania, the ABC here in Australia, Voice of Nigeria, Philippine Broadcasting Service, Voice of Greece, Voice of Vietnam, Radio Dubai, Radio Vanuatu, Christian Science Monitor, Radio Sofia in Bulgaria, the Solomon Islands Broadcasting Corporation, and the 2 best I've left for last. This one here is from Radio Kuwait. It's an unusual shape, but what a terrific card that is. Some nice photos and lots of information provided. And my favourite card is this from Radio Tampa in Japan, which I don't think broadcasts on shortwave any longer. And it's a 3D card. You fold it up like that, you look through these 2 eyelets, and there's a 3D image of Japan in the background. How good is that?
Now that's a good segment, Peter. Got quite a collection of cards there too. I like the 3D one.
That's
pretty
unique.
awesome.
the 3D one is absolutely excellent. Most of those cards are about 20 years old, and quite a number of those countries, such as Czechoslovakia, as a country, and East Germany, etc., no longer exist as separate states. They've either been absorbed into the larger Germany or split into the Czech Republic and Slovakia. So it's really good to have gotten those. Did you guys ever collect QSL cards yourself? Not the ham type, but rather the shortwave type.
No, I never have. I sent out a few, though, when I was working in broadcast. We had an AM station that had a pretty good coverage at night, and I used to send out cards ever so often. You know, a few times a year we'd get somebody requesting a card.
Yeah, the ham QSL cards are kind of dying. Everyone's going over to EQSL.
Yeah.
Things like that. It's kind of a shame to me.
Yeah.
It's something about, no disrespect to EQSL, but for me personally, it just doesn't quite grab me, an electronic card. I prefer to have the real thing.
Well, I've got another email here, and this comes from Martin, M3POG, in Liverpool, England. Martin says, I play guitar and fluff my way through the guitar, just a hobby nowadays. You being a drummer, do any of the other presenters play an instrument?
I play the saw and some spoons every now and then, but only on the weekend.
Only on the weekends. What about you, Peter?
No, I've thought quite a few times about actually learning an instrument, but the biggest problem is time.
Jim plays guitar and bass.
Yeah.
Maybe plays a little bit of keyboards. I play a little bit of guitar and bass myself, but I don't even play enough to claim that I fluff through it.
Well, I've got an email here. It's kind of short. It's mostly just a link. It's from my friend Don, N4MGA, and it's a link to an antenna design program. I'm not going to read it off. You see it on the screen. It's got some punctuation in it, but it's a pretty impressive program. Did you take a look at it?
Yeah, a 4NEC 2 antenna modeler and optimizer. That's some neat stuff. I think Jimmy has played around with this.
Yeah, there's some pretty heavy-duty stuff in there.
Yeah. Peter, your next email?
Yeah, I've got an email here from Peter, VK1NPW, and he says, G'day Peter, just a thought for the show. How about a segment on decoding weather satellites, i.e. NOAA-19, etc., using simple equipment and freeware software such as WXTOL MG? It's not a program I'm familiar with, but I have actually decoded weather satellites myself previously, so that's not a bad suggestion, Peter, and there's a very good chance that I'll do that in the near future.
Yeah, that sounds like it'd be a lot of fun. Jim used to do some of that too. Seems like I used to pick up some of them decades ago, but it's kind of blurry now. Well, our friend Charlie KY5U, who's a member of the Cam Radio Network, we spoke with him at the Hamfest in a recent episode. Charlie produces a segment here on streaming video, how to do it, and also on the Cam Radio Network and the various pieces of software that are used with it.
Hi, this is Charlie, KY5U, and I'm going to be talking about something called Cam Radio Net. Cam Radio Net is a group of amateurs that meet on 75 meters every evening at 3820 kilohertz, and while they talk on the air, they also broadcast over the internet with their webcams. You have the opportunity to go in and see their shack, see the ham that's on the air. They also share projects they're doing, so it's pretty interesting, and it establishes of a more personal level of contact between the amateurs. Anyway, I have two segments to show you. The first segment is how to get on the website, www.camradio.net. And the second segment will talk about a program called Cam Radio Info. More about that later. So let's take a look at how to get on the website, www.camradio.net. Talk about accessing the Cam Radio Net website. What we want to do is type in the browser window, www.camradio.net. Hit enter, and this is the website. It's kind of a half and half deal. The top half is the banner, the bottom half is the information. Two things we're going to talk about tonight on the website are stream listings and also TechBench. When you click on the stream listing, the bottom half of the screen gives you a listing of all of the people who have a potential of being able to broadcast video. One thing you can do, of course, is to listen to the net on 3820, and when you hear the call sign of somebody, give them a try on here. For instance, I hear that Gus in Chicago's there, N9CC, and there he is. He's cut a little out of the picture himself, but that's his shack in Chicago. That's a beautiful shack he has there, by the way. As you can see, he's got the Gazoo radio, he's got the great Electro Voice mic, Palstar tuner, and he's got the big amp over here. Very, very, very nice station. Terry is there too, I hear, at W3HKR in Pittsburgh. And here's what Terry's station looks like. Terry had a bunch of equipment and just sold it, and he's using a Malenko radio now. I think he's got his eye on something he wants to get here in the short term. You don't have to close each window. You can leave them all open if you want to. Another thing you want to do is click on, if you're on the West Coast, that's Russ. And Russ leads the net on the West Coast. So if you're out in western states, there's a net that goes on at the same time on the same frequency. Obviously, space-wise, we don't interfere with each other. And you can hear some of those guys. So that's stream listing. That's how you see the members that are sending out video while they're on the net. The other thing is TechBench. TechBench is really cool because it has a lot of articles that help you set up a webcam on the internet. Talks about all kind of different subjects, but it's a good resource for you. And also, I've produced some videos that are free that are on YouTube that walk you through setting up a webcam. Mine go in a little bit more detail and explain the various block diagrams, part of the network, and also what software runs where, and so on and so forth. So, anyway, I hope you find this useful. Well, I hope you found that informative. We are proud of our website, and also proud that you can go in and look at the members while they're broadcasting on CamRadioNet. And if you decide to become a member, and by the way, it's all free. The only thing that costs anything is the webcam. All the software is free, and being a member is free. And if you're a member, you have the opportunity to use a program called Cam Radio Info. What it does is, instead of having to click and try all of the links to see if a member's on, the program goes out and checks to see who's broadcasting and highlights it in the program. Makes it a lot easier to use. So let's take a look at that. Cam Radio Info is a program free to all Cam Radio Net members. I'm on the Cam Radio Net now. I have the radio turned down as not to interfere with my explaining this. Anyway, let's open up Cam Radio Info here, and we'll take a look at it, see what makes it tick. Cam Radio Info, unlike the website where you had to go and click on each individual link to see if the member was broadcasting, this program will actually go out and do that for you. It has a list of all the members. In this case, I'm looking at all the East members. That's the group of members who are on the East network. There's also a West one on at the same time. But obviously, because of 80 meters, 75 meters, we don't interfere with each other. But the program goes out and checks to see who's on, and if there's somebody's on, they will be green indicated here. If they're not, it'll be blue. And if you select one of them, it turns to orange. That way you know what windows you have open. So while it's going out and doing that, let's just select Gus in Chicago and Terry Church. There's Gus. Looks like he's not in his shack at the moment. Let's do Terry. See if Terry's there yet. There's Terry. Yep, he is. He's talking on the radio to somebody. In fact, we turned it up, probably could hear him, but I'm not going to do that. Anyway, let's see who else we can turn up here. Is John in Chicago. Let's do Sarge. Where's Sarge? There he is. There's John. You can see John. Let's bring him to the forefront here so we can see his shack. You can see that he's got quite a rack of audio gear there, and then he's got the Yaesu 1000 here. Great radio too. There's Sarge. Sarge is a new ham, and he's kind of taken to CamRadioNet really well. You can see he's got a nice, looks like a broadcast microphone of some sort, condenser mic, and he's using the Heil microphone there, it looks like. The thing I want to point out with the Logitech 9000 cameras, the videos are very pretty to look at. They're very clear, very crisp, and you can see the pictures are quite large as well. And the Cam Radio Net info program will take away a lot of the guesswork from you as to who's on and who's not on. You can go and click somebody who's green, and you know you're going to get a picture. And again, the program is free. If you're a member of Cam Radio Net, you can go to the website and download the picture, and you're in business. Well, we hope you like the 2 segments that we had for you today on Cam Radio Net. Cam Radio Net's a lot of fun, and remember, it's free. If you get your camera up and running, drop somebody a line on the website. There's an application you fill out basically saying that you'll broadcast a couple of times a week and have some fun with us. If you want some more information in general about setting up a webcam on the internet, I have some of that on my YouTube site, KY5U on YouTube. And if you like the segment, send some email to George so he'll know. Maybe we'll do some more segments for AmateurLogic.TV. This has been a lot of fun, and thanks for visiting the shack here.
And that was pretty interesting. Thanks, Charlie, for putting that together for us. It looks like a lot of fun. I keep threatening to get set up on there, but I just haven't done it yet.
Yeah, I'm on there, and I don't get on every night, although I listen most nights, but you'll catch me on there every now and then.
Yeah.
Well, I've got a Facebook wall post here from the AmateurLogic group off of Facebook. This one comes from our friend Kevin, and he says, is there anyone who could give me some good advice for an antenna for an HT radio? I'd appreciate any ideas. And I wrote him back and I said any type of external antenna is better than a rubber duck. However, a rubber duck is usually, you know, what you got to use for portable operation. A longer one would be better, and I'm using an MFJ 1716 right now, and it's better than the one that came with my Kenwood HT. Rob wrote in and said that he uses a mag mount with his. And Jeremy wrote in and said he uses a 19-inch whip type of rubber duck, and that it does much better than the OEM antenna that comes with the HT. He says you got to be careful, though, not to poke your eye out with it.
Yeah, some of those things are pretty long.
Yeah. And Kevin wrote back and said he'll give it a try. He appreciates the ideas, and he'll be careful.
You wear safety glasses when you use that thing. Well, I've got an email here. This one's from Salson, KG6NUB. It actually was addressed to Jimmy, but it came to all of us. But it says, hi, Jimmy, glad to see you back on the show. Wondering if you could send me the model number of the 6-meter broadcast amp you picked up and a link on how to modify it for 2 meters. Any idea what the current market prices are for such amps? Keep up the good work and hop on the show more often. You're a fan favorite. Here's the link to the mods. And Jim says keep scrolling down on the page. There's a lot of info there, and your best bet for buying one is probably on check eBay, your local TV transmitter engineer.
Yeah, and that was a VHF transmitter that those came out of, so UHF guy won't be able to help you. And a lot of VHF guys won't. It just depends on if they had one of these Larkans or one of the Harris Platinum series of solid-state transmitters. Peter?
This one's from Pete in Northern Ireland, MI3EPN. And he writes, I really enjoyed your section on contacting the ISS via packet in the last episode. That's number 25. And am really looking forward to the next episode coming out soon. As a satellite enthusiast, I would very much like to see an article on satellite operation, especially something on AO7 or a similar satellite capable of the slightly larger distances. For the moment, I'm a very keen listener, hoping to upgrade my license in the very near future to allow me to transmit to the satellites too. First of all, good luck with your upgrade there, Pete. And satellites are good fun. I haven't done a great deal other than perhaps the ISS, and I don't think I've done AO7, but it's something I wouldn't mind getting into a little bit later. Maybe George, Tommy, have you done any satellite work at all?
Not in years, or there again, decades.
Yeah.
But
I've never transmitted up there, but I did some monitoring a while.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a good while back.
yeah, well, it's a possibility in the future.
Yeah. Tommy, you and Jimmy talked me into getting one of these iPhones a few months back. You kept ragging me about it, and I finally did. Is there anything useful I can do with
Yeah,
it?
there's a couple of things that you might find interesting on it. One thing in particular. Let me show you.
Okay.
Hi, I'm out here at the park in Mississippi. It's a beautiful spring afternoon, although it feels like summer. Got a nice breeze blowing. Anyway, I want to talk to you about a few of my favorite things: smartphones and amateur radio, and kind of tie the two together. I've had smartphones since they first started coming out. Had some of the earliest ones, all the way up to the most current. And my favorite by far is my iPhone. Most of you guys probably have them and know what I'm talking about. Pretty well married to this thing. It's got my whole life pretty much in this phone. Unfortunately, it's probably sad to say, but it's true. I've got my contacts, my email, unfortunately my work email, my personals, my AmateurLogic emails are on here as well. My Facebook, Twitter accounts, I check them on here. Even do my banking on here. So anyway, you know how indispensable it is, just like I do. Well, it even being a ham, it actually just became more so. There's an app out, and I'm sure, to quote the phrase, there's an app for that. I'm sure you've seen the commercials. Well, there really is an app for pretty much anything you can think of, including amateur radio apps. And the number one by far is the Echolink client for the iPhone. You talk about a game changer. I know for me, it's been a game changer. I travel a lot for my work, and it's not always convenient to take a handy-talkie everywhere I go. Well, if I get a break, you know, we've got Echolink nodes set up here in the Jackson area where all my friends hang out. I can get on here and connect back to Jackson and talk on my iPhone, no matter where, in the airport, in the hotel after work, so forth. You know, if you go on a picnic or whatever, you always got handy-talkie available. And it'll be interesting to see how it works with when the new iPhone OS 4 comes out that has multitasking. If you can run Echolink in the background and leave it connected, I'm sure we'll probably follow up with that in the future. Anyway, enough about that. Let's take a look at it and see how well it works. If you've ever logged into it before, it'll automatically log you in on all the subsequent tries. First time you run it, it'll prompt you for your username and password. Just enter that. Like I said before, you need to be a registered user and a licensed ham to use Echolink. And if you've used Echolink on the computer or the PC or the Mac before, it looks very familiar. You've got a way to connect to the test server, check your audio. Let's try one.
Welcome to the Echolink test server. This server records your transmissions and plays them back to help you adjust your transmitted and received audio. Please feel free to connect as often as you like.
If you notice, after we made the connection, the tab moved over to the QSO tab, and you can go back and forth and look, but this is the QSO that you're in. You can transmit and test your audio. It'll play it back for you just like you're used to. And we'll touch that to disconnect. We've got an option here for different microphones. You can use the speakerphone or the built-in mic where you have to hold it up to your ear. I like it on the speaker myself. It also works with the earbuds and with the microphone that come with the phone. That's a good way to use it in the airport and so forth, so it doesn't look like you're actually holding up a walkie-talkie to your mouth when you're talking. If you're connected, we can send text messages to the other end, just like you can on the computer. We can search for our stations. Let's search for my local repeater here that we'd like to hang out on. A little bit difficult to type from the side. And it pops up and you can connect. We'll make a connection to George here in a few minutes if he's around. He should be, and we'll try that out. You can also go through and browse by location, your country, you know, so forth. Just like on the computer. And you can add things to your favorites. You can see I've already added my local repeater because I use it quite often. And settings. This is where you change your call sign and password if you have a need to. You can set your location name so people can see you when you're connected. They'll see this string. So I've got iPhone portable on mine, but you can put whatever you like. Down here, this is important. We've got the network connection options, and these you'll probably want to go to the website and read about. There's some limitations to some of them. Right now I've got mine set to relay. Relay works the best on cell networks, but there's some limitations. Like I said, if you're on relay, then you cannot receive a connection. You can make them, but you get no incoming connections. So if people see you on, they won't be able to connect. They'll get a network path not found error or something like that. But you can use direct if you're on Wi-Fi, and it may even work on cell. I've not tried it. But public proxies are also available, which is nice. It'll automatically find proxies for you. Unlike the Windows version, you don't have to go through and pick the proxy you want. As you can see, it picked one there. But I think I'm going to leave it on relay because most of the time when I'm using it, I'm on the cellular network. The other options we have are end receive sound, which will play a tone when the other end stops transmitting, and a text sound if someone sends you a text message, so you know to go over there and look for it. Well, let's see if we can make a contact on it, my local repeater. W5JDX N5Z&O.
N5Z&O. This is W5JDX. Good afternoon, Tommy.
Hey, good afternoon. Just trying out the Echolink client on my iPhone. How's it sound? I'm on the 3G network at the moment.
Well, it just sounds like Echolink. I could not tell any difference between this and a regular computer.
Roger, well, good deal. I'm gonna hate to cut you short. I think there's a little bit of rain starting to blow up here, so I think I'm gonna call it quits and head back towards the house. Just want to give it a try out here and see how it was. Good to hear you this afternoon. N5Z&O.
All right, Tommy, good to hear you too, and I'm working on my segment for this episode right now. We'll be looking at in a little bit. I think everyone's going to find it interesting. Have a good afternoon. Don't get wet. 7-3 and 5Z&O W5JDX.
Yeah, roger that. Well, you just became part of my segment for this month too. So anyway, all right, we'll see you later. N5Z&O, I'm gonna clear. Well, as you can see, man, it works great. I don't know what more you could ask for an iPhone. I don't see how you can even consider another smartphone with something like that being a ham. But anyway, go give it a try and let me know what you think about it. I'll see you next time.
Yeah, Tommy, that is a great piece of software, and actually I had found it.
Yeah.
I used it a lot in Vegas last month.
Yeah. But a lot of people don't know it's there. Because I searched for it when I first got my phone, and I scoured the web looking for that because I just wanted it so bad. And I kind of gave up on it. And then it just recently kind of surfaced.
Yeah. I just stumbled across it one night myself, and boy, it's great. You really ought to give it a try if you got an iPhone.
Tommy, will that work on the iTouch? I haven't got an iPhone, but I've got an iTouch, which is like an iPod.
Yeah, actually, I believe it will. You're going to have to use the earbuds with the mic that comes with an iPhone, and then it should work just fine for that.
Well, I've got an email here from Dave WB6DHW, and Dave said that he saw that we had an interest in SDR kits, software-defined radio kits, and he says he just happens to sell a couple, and his latest one is the UHF SDR. It's a transceiver that's approximately 10 to 20 milliwatts of output. Of course, you can put an amp on it to get it up more. And it covers from 1.5 megahertz to 700 megahertz. So that's a lot wider than what you can do with the soft rock. Any of the software programs that will work with the soft rock will work with it. And he says he also does an internet radio program on ham radio every Thursday night from 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Pacific time. It's on Blog Talk Radio, and the name of it is News Free, and I'm going to mess this up. How would you say that? Kuskia?
Kuskia?
Yeah, the Radio Free Kuskia program. He says he lives near Kuskia, Idaho. And I wrote back Dave, and I said, I sure would like to try out one of those UHF SDRs. And he was kind enough, along with his friend Art, who packages these, to send me a kit. And here it is right here. It's still in the sealed plastic wrap. I haven't opened it yet, but we're going to do that in a future episode. I'm going to build this, and we're going to have a look at the UHF SDR and just, how well it works, what there is to assembling it. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. We've had a lot of feedback on the other SDR stuff you did. A lot of people really hyped up about that.
Yeah, in episode 15, I did a segment on building the Soft Rock 40, where, we actually did surface mount soldering using a heat gun on there. Yep. If you hadn't seen that, you might want to take a look at it. In episode 16, I showed testing it, and I believe I used the Rocky software when I was testing that. Don't remember for sure right now. And in episode 26, I showed using the Kenwood TS2000 as a software-defined radio, part 1. And basically that was tapping out the 12 kilohertz IF on it and feeding that to a sound card. And that works well. However, you can take that quite a bit further, and that's what's going to be in part 2. To do that, you really should understand a little about radio receivers and what the IF is in it. So I've got a segment here about understanding IF, or intermediate frequencies, and we show a little bit about how that can relate to a software-defined radio. This segment is going to contain mostly drawings and charts, but I think if you can stay awake through it, when we're finished you'll understand a lot more about radio receivers and what an IF is. To begin, let's take a look at a typical receiver block diagram. The first element we see on the left is the antenna, where the signal is received off the air. The antenna feeds an RF amplifier usually, which increases the level of the signal. The local oscillator produces a radio signal that is combined in the mixer with the RF signal being picked up off the air. The byproduct of the two is called the intermediate frequency. Now, intermediate frequencies are used for 3 general reasons. At very high frequencies, signal processing circuitry performs poorly, and it's also kind of difficult for ordinary circuits using capacitors and inductors to tune higher frequencies. The second reason is that in a receiver that can tune different stations, you would have to convert the different frequencies in all the stages of the radio to actually decode it. Using an intermittent frequency, we just have a tunable oscillator that we adjust the frequency on, and then everything below the mixer operates on a single frequency. But the main reason that we use intermittent frequency is to improve the frequency selectivity of the receiver. When we're dealing with a single frequency, it's easier for us to build filters that perform better. Typical AM radio receivers, the IF frequency is 455 kilohertz. In commercial FM receivers, it's usually 10.7 megahertz. The IF frequency of my Kenwood TS2000 is 10.695 megahertz, so it's not very far off the typical FM IF frequency. A lot of HF receivers have an IF frequency that's in the 8 megahertz range. Now, after the mixer and the IF frequency is produced, the next stage is the detector, where the audio is actually demodulated into an audio signal that is fed to the AF or audio frequency amplifier, and then fed on to our headphones or our speakers, whatever we're listening to. And that's the way a typical receiver works. To better understand how this IF frequency works, let's take a detailed look. This is a chart of the 80-meter amateur radio band, which in the United States extends from 3.5 to 4 megahertz. Now, if we tuned in a single frequency in that band, let's say 3.825 megahertz, our IF frequency is going to be 10.695 megahertz. As a matter of fact, no matter what frequency we tune in on the radio, the IF frequency is always going to be 10.695 megahertz. Let's assume that the TS2000 has a 50 kilohertz IF bandwidth. That means that what we're actually getting is a signal that stretches from 10.67 megahertz to 10.72 megahertz, with 10.695 being in the center of that, and that is the signal that we'll demodulate and listen to. Let's tune in a different frequency, say 3.7 megahertz. Our IF bandwidth is still the same, and the same frequencies are involved. Even if we tune to the 10-meter amateur radio band, our IF frequency is still 10.695 megahertz. Now let's zoom in to take a little closer look at what I'm going to call the virtual tuning range, or the actual IF bandwidth. Now, coming from the radio, it's actually 10.67 megahertz to 10.72 megahertz, but what we'll be receiving within that range is the over-the-air frequencies that are between 28.175 and 28.225 megahertz. Now that's 50 kilohertz of range. Our receiver is typically only looking at around 3 kilohertz of signal for a sideband signal. If we took a second receiver and fed our IF signal from this first receiver into it and tuned that second receiver to 10.695 megahertz, would actually be listening to 28.200 megahertz, and we could tune up and down 25 kilohertz from that, and we'd still be hearing signals in that 28 megahertz band, although our second receiver would be tuning and displaying 10.695 megahertz. Now, what if we had a software-defined radio that could receive 10.695 megahertz? We could feed this IF signal straight into that. If you watched episode 15, I built a SoftRock 40 software-defined radio. However, it won't receive this frequency. Fortunately, the SoftRock folks have come up with a new receiver. It's the SoftRock RX Lite plus USB Extel version 9, and it is a frequency agile software-defined radio that can be controlled by the USB port of your computer. So there's no problem putting this on 10.695 megahertz or whatever IF frequency output your HF receiver might have. The hardware portion of a software-defined radio acts like the IF conversion that we've just discussed. It will take our IF frequency, in this case 10.695 megahertz, and shift that whole bandpass down to a range of 0 to 50 kilohertz. These frequencies are suitable to be fed into a sound card where they can be filtered and demodulated with software. The software will see this bandwidth and allow you to filter out and demodulate just a small portion of it. As I mentioned earlier, a typical sideband signal is only 3 kilohertz wide. Very little of that spectrum is being actually listened to at any one time. So why would we want to go to all the trouble of doing this instead of just listening to the receiver that's built into our radio? Well, we get all the advantages of having a software-defined radio, and it tracks the frequency of our main radio. In other words, we get superior filtering, usually better DSP noise reduction, functions like pan adapter, spectrum analyzer. Whatever the SDR package has in it is now available to us using our standard radio. There's 50 kilohertz of bandwidth coming into the software there that's being received all at once. As I mentioned earlier, a typical sideband signal is only 3 kilohertz wide, so we'll be only listening to a small portion of this bandwidth. Now, some SDR software will allow you to listen to 2 separate signals at once within the bandpass, and that's a feature that I really like. If your HF receiver already has an IF output on it, then you're in business. All you really need is a good little SDR radio like the SoftRock and some free software to get started. If you're the owner of a TS2000, you've probably been wondering where this IF output I'm talking about is located. Unfortunately, the TS2000 doesn't have this feature, so we'll have to add it. I was lucky enough to find a great article in Schematic by Doug Hall, K4DSP. You can do a search on the internet for TS-2000 SoftRockIF.pdf. In this document, Doug shows us how to build a small preamp and pad for isolation so that we can tap the IF on the TS2000. In our next episode, where I talk about the software-defined radio, we'll show you that preamp and where I installed it in my radio, and we'll actually show you the TS2000 being used with Power SDR as a software-defined radio.
Man, that was pretty interesting. I got a lot better understanding on how that works now.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to the next software-defined radio.
Yeah.
Also kind of go along with the theory on that.
I think you're really going to like that one.
Yeah, little theory is a good thing.
Yeah.
Peter, you got any more emails?
Yes, I've got an email here from Chad. Hello, my name is Chad. My call sign is KJ4RVN. I'm a fairly new ham, and I was wanting to know if you guys might be able to do a show on the ISS or satellite work. My location is in Hendersonville, TN. What's that, guys? TN?
Tennessee.
Tennessee. Ah, right. I love you alls. Show. So, yeah, thanks for the email, Chad. Episode 25, I did a segment on contacting the ISS, so that I think you'll find that quite interesting. And as I said earlier, we may do something else on contacting satellites in the future.
Yeah, if you've got any interest in the ISS or satellite work, you really ought to go check out episode 25.
Yeah, that was a good one.
It was.
Well, I've got a mention from Facebook here, but before I read this, I was going to just bring it up. If you're a member of Facebook and you're not on our group, do a search for Amateur Logic, all one word, and join the group. And we try to keep you posted on when we're working on episodes and answer questions and things like that. It's kind of a lot of fun.
It is.
But anyway, this one's from John. He's asked George or Tommy, are you going to Dayton? And unfortunately, due to some work obligations and things, we weren't able to make it this year. I kind of had plans to go, but work always seems to kind of get in the way. Yeah. Anyway, we weren't able to make it, but if you're interested, you can check out W5KUB's site, Tom. Yeah. And he's the helmet cam guy.
Yeah.
And it's pretty interesting. I get on there every now and then to watch the guys walk by his table. Although I guess it's over now.
It's over.
But he's still got some footage on there.
Yeah, there's a little video viewer on there, the same one that he used during Dayton, and I went and watched it a little while.
Yeah.
Saw the belly cam on there.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's got a slideshow on there now that you can scroll through and and see different videos that he shot during Dayton Hamfest.
Yeah, maybe we'll work out. Maybe we can get it next year. We just
maybe
have to see
so.
how it works out.
I'd like to.
Yeah.
Well, that's it for episode 28. We hope you've enjoyed it. It's been a lot of fun bringing it to you. And join us again next time for episode 29.
See you next time.
See you later.
Cool.
That's the first time we've ever done one without stopping the tape. Yeah.
Now, guys, I've got a question for you.
Okay.
Now, it's nothing to do with amateur radio. It's got to do with down your way. Let's see, what is it? Soup. I believe that there's some kind of soup that you guys eat in Mississippi.
Gumbo.
Gumbo. What is gumbo?
It's from Louisiana.
Oh, yeah.
We have it here. I actually had it last night for supper.
And so what's in it? What's the taste of it?
It's got shrimp with motor oil on it, and